what you're going to play. And,
Hi, my name is Carolyn Lau. I'm 16 years old. I'm from Roslyn Heights, Long Island. And I currently study with Carol Winsons at the Juilliard Free College. And I'll be playing the first movement of the Nielsen Flute Concerto.
That's great. Yes. Really great. Great playing. I would love to hear your very first entrance again, because I want to put my mask on. I'm going to be talking over you. I'll be right back. Yeah. I would love to hear you play that opening statement again, because I think you really want to say something to your audience. I can tell that you want to say something. I'm not just saying that you should say something. I think you actually have something to say, but you were a little bit tentative. And I know this is the first time you've ever played with Susie, and so it was a little bit like, okay, count, and then come in, right? But I would really love to hear that just be the most glorious, beautiful statement that you can make. You're really setting up this very, this huge opening, right, for this concerto. So, and you're the soloist, right? I know you know that, yeah? So can we try that, just the opening one more time?
Sure. You want me to start the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's more like it. Yeah, that was really, really great. Are you super confident about rhythmically where your entrance is?
This is my first time playing the piano.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that, I mean, you know, that's it's been a difficult time. We've all been, you know, I haven't played with a piano for a while either, so I know what you mean. Yeah, I think even that being the case, you know, we do a lot of listening when we're learning concerto and learning any piece of music. And I think if you can really get to know how your entrance fits in with the introduction that's set up in the piano, because what I really love to see, you're not doing it too much, but I'm seeing kind of a lot of, okay, I'm counting the right number of beats and then I'm gonna, right?
Yeah.
This time the sound was great, but I'd love for you to just be feeling the opening and know exactly where you're gonna come in and then just play this statement, you know? Can we try that again? That's the way it's done, yeah. I think if you can just, you know, this is the third time, and each time you've done it, you've been a little bit more confident about where you're supposed to come in, and therefore you need to do less of that sort of counting to know where to come in. So that's much better. Now, this whole opening, the whole thing, until we get, I don't know if that's scratched out or if that, what does that say?
Oh, this is diminuendo.
Diminuendo, so because you've got pencil on it, so I didn't know if, I think that you want to keep the fullness in this all the way through until that diminuendo.
Okay.
It's got, you're letting it go a little bit too soon, I think, and if you could keep that going, that sort of triumph, heroic kind of sound, ba ba ya da dee da 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 da, and then when it goes down to the middle register, that's the hardest as flutists for us to really resonate and to really make that kind of sound. It's real easy on an A to an E, A to a D interval, the opening, but then as we get in the middle register, you have to really work to get that, keep that sound nice and full. Can we do it again? See how much more effective that is if you really keep the intensity and the sound and the volume, even though the tendency is we're getting into the middle register and our tendency is to back off because that's what the flute wants to do, right? But if you don't do that, then when you have that diminuendo, it's so dramatic and it really works. Then subito forte, right? Where
right
here, yeah, like there is a crescendo, so it's not exactly a subito, but it really kind of comes out of nowhere. Right? Really, really sing out there. Good. Could you do it at 10? Yeah, good. Don't hesitate. Don't feel like, oh, that note is a 16th and it's off the beat. I have to hurry up and play it. Just ba da 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 da, right? Okay. Be more of a diva. yes, that's great. Yes, wonderful. Good. Now, there are a couple of things. You actually kind of fixed it without me saying it, because I think playing with more gusto is causing you to do this, but I'd like you just to be aware, whenever you have any kind of, when you have these repeated notes, I don't mean the staccato ones, I mean the long, later, and then also here in this opening, like here, when you have all these Ds, one after the other, make sure that you really enunciate them, that you really articulate them, that you show that they serve different functions in the line. So we have da 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 dee da dee bum ba dee dum. Right? It's like if a singer were, if there were words, the singer would probably do something like that. Kind of scoop the note or whatever. And we don't want to literally do that, but if you can keep that in mind in terms of the musical shape of it. I think it keeps it going, keeps it moving more. Good. Let's do all of that again from the beginning, and this time we won't stop.
Okay.
I do that all the time. Sorry. I want to hear da ti da ti da. It's not. There's some space between them. There needs to be some space, but it's not just putting space. It's also thinking about the articulation with musical gesture in mind. You know, how am I shaping these notes, and how does the articulation make that shape happen, rather than just I see two separated notes, so I tongue them. You know, but do something intentional with your tongue. Do something intentional with your articulation to show what it says. You don't have to go all the way back. How about right on that bar? Da dee da dee da dee dum. Yeah, good. I'm gonna play just for a second to show you kind of what I mean. So I'm gonna go. Right, and then keep the air moving because it's a crescendo, right? Da-da, goes that way, yeah? Yeah, good. Just don't swallow the lower note. It's not dee-da-da, it's dee-da-da. Yeah? Piano molto staccato, I'd like you to think of, conjure up a completely new character. Okay. Nothing we've heard yet. It's the beginning of the piece, but this is what this piece is like. It's so, there's so many different things happening, and the characters are constantly changing. And we come back to one, and then we go, it's sort of like telling a story. I mean, I think of this, and a lot of the music of Nielsen, you know, like, when I think about like a lot of Norse mythology and the stories that mythology tells, lots of little mythological creatures and things, and I can hear those in this piece if we use our imagination. I think you need to find some of those characters to try to create in the way that you're communicating the music, because you're playing it so well in terms of just playing it, the technique, and it's really, really solid, but I'd just love to hear it come to life a little bit more. Can we start there at 10? And when you play this, it's mezzo piano, but you are the soloist, you're a concerto soloist, you really have to sing out over the orchestra there, so I would let it really ring. And yeah, let's just do that from 10. That was really nice. I want to just talk about tonguing for a second. Also, anyone who, tell me if I'm running, because I will talk forever. So, how are you thinking about the tonguing?
I think of like tak, tuk, taku, and then like in the kind of like towards the tip more.
Okay.
So I want like really light and staccato.
So crisp, or like you're trying to get a crisp. So I think it's good. I think that you need to think less about your tongue and more about your air. Oh. What your air is doing and how your air is contributing to the tonguing, the articulation, because the lightness the tongue is only really involved in the beginning of the note. It's the inception of the articulation. Everything else after that has to do with how we utilize our air. So if you're not really thinking about air, you're just thinking about tongue, maybe you're successful with the beginning of the note, but then what happens after that? You're not really thinking about the length, you're not really thinking about the tone. And so that crispness and that lightness that we're trying to go for comes from your air, not your tongue.
Oh.
I mean, a little bit of crispness is your tongue at the very beginning, but other than that, right? So I like that it's more forward, but if you can really try to get let go of the tongue and use the air, think about the air. Can we just do that spot and then we'll stop? So right at two bars, I guess it's 12. 2 bars after 10.
Okay.
Yes. Much better. I actually, at this tempo, I don't know that I would even double tongue it.
Yeah.
It's totally up to you. I'm not telling you not to double tongue it. Don't take me, if double tonguing is what works better for you, but I think that lightness, that crisp character that we're trying to get is sometimes easier with a single tongue.
Okay.
So that's something you could think about. It's slow enough that you could single tongue this section. So something to give some thought to. Yes, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
So my name is Zofia Leznicka. I'm from Poland, and I'm studying with Professor Leznicka, and I'm a freshman at Manhattan School of Music. And I will be playing Fantasie Op.
Okay.
I'll just
It's been a while, but I haven't.
Came prepared.
Kinda.
How do you think of this opening? What's the character, the overall character? What are you trying to say here in this opening melody?
I feel it's like mystery.
Mystery, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying like to tell like a story. It's like really shy and becomes like really open, and the dynamics are really important.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I see lots of written stuff in there. That's great. I think it's really important. I think those ideas are good, and I think that to some degree I heard that, but you don't seem super convinced about how you want to say those things. And I think before you can convince an audience, before you can make the audience hear what you want to hear, you have to be convinced. And I think that we as musicians, we have to really work hard to figure out how it is that we're going to do, communicate a certain thing. Starting a note, and how am I going to make that note sound when I first play it, when it's first articulated? What color do I want? How much vibrato am I going to use? How am I going to actually articulate it? All those thoughts have to go through, and I think, obviously not in the moment in the performance, but in our preparation for the piece and how we want to do it. Because if you really work those things out, then no matter what happens, if there's a little mistake or whatever, that's all in there. It's in the existence of the piece. It's part of that. Instead of sort of in performance, kind of wondering what you're going to do each time, or I'm thinking of this thing, but is it really coming across? You know what I mean? Those questions that go through in performance. So I'd actually like to talk about the first note and what color do you want? How do you want that note to sound? What's the relationship of that note to what happens right before it in the keyboard part? Those kinds of things.
Well, it's supposed to be very open.
Open, yeah.
Piano, and like crescendo, pretty like sunny.
Sunny, okay, sure. What about the actual start of the note? Like, what do you want to say right when it starts? Do you want it to sort of come out of the texture of the piano? Do you want it to be like, here I am?
Be part of the piano.
Yeah, I think that's what I could tell that you sort of wanted. It didn't quite work. It was a little bit late, and it was, you weren't quite ready to play, even though you were counting and you were and you breathed, but then you still weren't quite ready because it wasn't about, all of those things. It was just in here. You weren't really thinking about how does that note fit with what I'm hearing right now. So I'd like to just hear that note a few times. Like, I don't even want you to go past that first note. Just want you to play it and do it a few times with the piano and see what you want to say. Good. Do it again. I like that one. Do it one more time. Okay. Number 2, right? Number 2 is the best one. Let's see if we can reproduce number 2. Good. Okay, so I really love that one. I love that first note now. And then I really like what you did with the shape of that note. But then what came after didn't seem to really relate to what was set up in that note. that note was so beautiful, and it had this lovely shape to it, and then all of a sudden you see notes that are under a slur with staccato on them, and they become disconnected from what you just did. I'd like you to see if you can interpret that and make it relate to it's still part of the same line. We've only played one note, right? That line's not over. And I would really love to hear that shape continue. How is this note blossoming? And then that blossoming keeps happening, right? Think about those slow-mo, you see a slow-mo video of a flower opening up, right? And the first note is like the very beginning, it's doing this. But then the rest of the notes are when all those petals really start to come out, and it just becomes this gorgeous thing, right? That's what I want to hear in this opening melody. And that happens at least to here. Maybe this is a new flower, but all of this first few bars of that. Yeah? Okay, can we try that? It's getting there. It's really getting there. Do you really want to speed up on those notes? Is that on purpose?
No, it's just I used to play a bit faster in the drafts.
Gotcha.
I should have.
That's okay. That's okay. I was just curious. So you like it a little bit faster? That's fine. Yeah, let's try it a little faster. Okay, really, really good. I like that shape now. And the tempo, I think, yes, of course, communicating, and this is the first time, there was no way to do that, but that's important. I think that you could really explore that more. It's better now, for sure, but I think you could really think about in much more detail how you want this to shape. And then the colors that you choose, because these two parts look kind of similar, but they're in different harmonies. And they have different colors, and I think if we can utilize the dynamics, you've got some dynamics written, but I would think about some more imagery. What kind of flower maybe, you don't have to use my flower image, but you can if you want, but maybe a different kind the second time. Okay, so I don't want to go on and on about that, but I think that's one thing. In the second part, we have the same rhythmic figure over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? Eighth note pickup to a quarter, or eighth note pickup to a downbeat. And it happens here. It happens here, it happens here, it happens here, 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 here. I mean, you see how over and over and over again we have ba ba, ba ba, and it happens into all different harmonies, bumping, ba ba ya, da da, right? Da da, octaves. It happens over and over again. And I think if you can unify that in your mind, what does that rhythm sound like? What is the energy of that eighth note pickup? And do that over and over again, that unification of that idea really comes across in the way that you play it. Okay, I'd love to just hear the beginning of this. Also, you have to know where your entrance is.
Yeah.
Right? Know what the piano part sounds like, and just know where it is.
You want me to start right at the Allegro?
Yeah, the Allegro.
Okay. And how was the tempo for you? Is that okay? All right.
Yes. Ba, 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 ba. No, there's two in a row. Bum, ba, 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 da, 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 da. Okay, play right there.
Sorry, is that good?
Yep, right there. Yeah, good. I'm going to play it once for you. Where is that? It's here. It's under a slur, but it's the same figure. Right? That same energy.
That second phrase?
Yeah, do the second phrase.
From A.
Yeah, from the A. Just don't be like there. Don't be like there. If you think about da dee da dee da dee da dee ya da da, think of it. It just keeps going. One more time, then we can probably better stop. Here again. Yes, yeah, good, good. So I want you to go through this, and I want you to find every one of those and practice them so you get that kind of energy. Right? So that we have that kind of articulation energy on those pickup notes. Okay? I think that will help a lot. And then make sure that you really know that keyboard part and know how your entrances. Entrances are one of the hardest things for any musician, right? You play so technically well. It was really good. And the main things, the places where it was a little bit of a problem were mostly because of entrances. And so just making sure that you really know how your part fits in with whoever, if it's piano or in an orchestra or with chamber players, that you always hear their parts and you know how your entrance is supposed to fit so that you never miss it. Okay? Great.
Hi, I'm Adeline DeBella. I am a second-year master's student at Purchase College, and I'm going to be playing Bach E major sonata. I have the first and second movements. Do you want both?
I can't imagine we'll get through more than the first movement, so we'll
okay.
Start with the first and see.
Great.
I love each of these Bach sonatas because each one of them is so different. You know, that's not something that can be said all the time about Baroque music, and even later music by the same composers when they write. They're so prolific and they write, you know, thousands of sonatas, and you start to hear it's like, you know, oh, okay, yeah, that's the same style, but each one of these sonatas is so distinctly different, and I feel like this one is all about affect.
Okay.
You know, they all have some of that in them. There's some common threads, but this one, that's really what it's all about. It's about these ornamental lines and how they create affect in the music. Do you know, if you studied, you know, what that is in that kind of in the
A little bit.
Yeah, you have to dig back into that music history.
Yeah.
You know? It's basically a means of expression, of writing expression into music in this era and from this period. And it sort of gives us the impression, you know, I notice with my students a lot of times they confuse Baroque kind of affected music and romantic rubato, right?
Okay.
And they kind of, those things get blurred in the mind when they're like separated by many, many years, right? So they're not the same thing, but it's really easy because they kind of have some similarity. So I guess what I'm getting at is that it's so beautiful the way you're doing it, but you're being very careful in playing every 30-second note exactly in time. And that's not actually how a Baroque composer would have conceived it. It's not how we generally think of them. They really should have direction and show shape and expression in the line, but they don't need to be so exact. I remember being, I don't know, somewhere probably around your age and playing in a masterclass for a Baroque flutist. Actually, I wasn't the one playing, I was listening, and somebody was playing Bach, and I remember him saying, you just have to throw away all those notes in between, right? Okay. You're not gonna get that, you're not gonna get permission to do that from your teacher very much, right? But in this music, for the style, it doesn't mean that we don't have to practice playing it evenly or make sure that we have the technique. It just means that ultimately, we want the style to just be like this opening is right? Those notes just sort of fall. They either kind of float up or they fall away. They don't have to be so metronomically exact. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I'd love to hear you play the opening again one more time and see if you can. I know I can hear in your playing that you understand the structure of it. So keep that structure, but let some of these inside notes just be expression. Let them be just ornamental. That's all they are.
Okay.
Yeah? It's a little bit freeing, right? And it allows you to do more of what I think is already in there, but it kind of gives you permission to not be so strict, you know? I think it's all within reason, right? You can't let it get too outside ultimately the meter has to remain the same. We have to make sure that we fit everything in. But you see how you have some flexibility inside the beats.
Right. Was that too much?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think in some ways you could actually do a little more. But it was really wonderful. I think, you know, you have to experiment with it.
Okay.
But I like that. Now, the other thing about this that will actually contribute to this very same idea is you need to think about the articulation. You're being very sort of soft and light on every tongue note, and I think that's good. We don't want it to have too hard of a tongue, you know, too hard of an attack. But sometimes we need a clear separation so that we can hear what the melodic notes are. So T-ya-dee-da-dee-dum, T-ya-da-tee. So that it actually allows us to be more expressive.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's a little bit like fa-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Right? Your articulation's just a little bit muddy.
Okay.
So if you can crisp it up a little bit and still do that, that would really be great.
Okay.
Yeah, and then let the top note be shorter. Ba-ya-dee-da-dee-dum, ba-ya-dee-da-dee-dum.
Okay.
Let it just sort of float. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you hear that? And I also hear the relationship between the two now. da ya di da di da, going there, and then ya di da di da di da, right? The articulation and the fact that you're not now giving every note equality really allows us to see what the important, they're all important, what the key notes are, right? What's giving the music forward motion and direction.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yes.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah, I like that.
Syncopations are a big deal. Yeah, and I think they're not like Prokofiev syncopations, so we're not going to go ba, right? We're not going to smack them. But I think you could really be very, you could use them again expressively. So da ya di da di da dum di da dum dum ti da da dum, right? Articulation, shape, color, all of those things, and then the fact that it's syncopated, it's not on the beat. Because it's syncopated, gives it a totally different feeling, a different color. Yeah? Good. Do it again. Keep going. Yeah, great. Why the ba-di-da-di-da-da? Why that rhythm? Why are you choosing that right there? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just asking why.
Well, the grace note would take half of the value of the written note.
Why is that? Because my teacher told me.
Yeah, someone said that at some point in history.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm not saying it's completely wrong. I do think that we get in our heads that there are certain rules for how to do things. And we like to put them into a specific box, like this is exactly how I'm supposed to do this. A good example of that is Baroque trills. How many of you learned, always start a trill from the note above when I even play Baroque music, right? Okay, that is true a lot of the time, but it's not because there's a rule that says you should always start from the note above. It's because oftentimes the trill needs an appoggiatura, so we need to put an appoggiatura. And in that case, you're actually not beginning the trill from the upper note. You are playing an appoggiatura, and then you are trilling the note, right? Those are two different things. One thing is a tremolo that goes downward. The other one is a trill that has an upper note attached to the beginning of it. And because it's the style to do it, we put it on the beat. So then that gets convoluted in the young person's brain to mean play the note, play the trill starting on the upper note. Okay? This is a perfect example of that. That is meant to be an expressive tool in the music, an ornament, right? But to say that it should be rhythmically exactly half the value of the note that it's attached to is assigning a rule to something that wasn't designed to be a rule. It's a style, right? So really what that is that's an appoggiatura. Da-dee-da-dee, ya-dee-da-dee-da, ya-dee-da-dee-da. And I could go ya-dee-da-dee-dum, or I could go ya-dee-da-dee-dum. I could do it any number of ways that I want to do it.
Okay.
There's no rule that says that has to be turned into 4 30-second notes, which is how we often hear it played. Yeah. So that's why I asked the question, because I think it will change. You may ultimately decide to kind of play it that way, but if you think about it as being expressive, not being rhythmic, that's the approach that we should take when playing this music. Okay. Yeah? Can we try that?
Yes.
How about here? So pick up to 5. Oh, sorry, I went too far. Pick up to 3. Pick up to 3. 1 minute. That is like, that was night and day. That was a completely different gesture that you just played.
I like that better.
Of course you do. Because it allows you to be expressive, right? The other way was sort of, I have to fit it in this little box. And even if we think that's right, this way was, I get to be expressive. And of course we all would rather feel that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're out of time. I mean, with all of these pieces, I could just go on and on and on. I would love to be able to do that, but we obviously can't do that. So I think that this whole movement, as I said, is really, this movement is about affect. And if you can bring more of that to this, more of that freedom in the ornamented stuff, and really just show where it's going harmonically, where the phrases are going, and really commit to each one of those, then it will just take something that you're already playing very beautifully and bring it to it at another level. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank
wonderful.
You so much.
Yes. Thank you for coming. Thank you, all three of you, for coming and playing. I know that, I don't know if you probably have done a bunch of Zoom master classes. I know I certainly have. It's so great to actually be able to, I'm just starting to work with my students at home in person as well, and it's just really nice to finally be with people and do this together. So, yes. And thank you, Susie, so much for